I think when you change your perspective into what do I want to accomplish here and how am I going to get what I accomplish, I'm not going to compromise my morals, my ethics, or who I am at my core. But what I found, it lets me actually be a little bit more who I am. And now I'm happier doing what I do because I'm not having to wear this facade of, yeah, I could get in there and tough it out with you. If you get in my face, I'm going to get in your face. I could do that. I'll get in your face. If you get in my face, I'll get in your face. Um, I don't like doing that. I'm not that kind of a person. At my core, I like being happy. I like being nice to people. So I just stopped doing that. And I stopped making excuses for people who did. Um, and I'm working in an organization that wants to be wants that.
Welcome to our shiny new podcast called Breaking Ground: Women in AEC Leadership. This is the show that lifts the voices, journeys, and insights of women shaping the future of architecture, engineering, and construction. And it's brought to you by Unanet. If you're in the AEC space, you know how critical it is to keep your projects on time, your teams aligned, your pipeline growing, and your finances in check. That's where Unanet comes in with project-based ERP solutions, CRM solutions, and an AI growth suite built specifically for AEC firms. I'm your host, Rhianna Dempsey. In each episode, we will connect with professionals across the AEC industry to share real stories and, more importantly, hard-earned wisdom. At our core, we believe that a strong, diverse workforce drives innovation and success, and that women are essential to building the future of AEC. And I am super excited today to introduce our guest, and that is Jenifer Navard. It is great to see you, Jenifer.
Hey, Rhiannon, how are you doing? It's Friday, yay.
It is Friday, yes. It is very exciting. You're one of our inaugural episodes, so excited to have you here today.
This is a new thing for me too. I've never done one of these before, I don't think. So
You
we'll see
really
what happens.
haven't? You
Not a
speak at
not a
like all the
podcast.
conferences. How
Yeah,
do
I
you
speak.
not?
Yeah, I speak
Wow.
everywhere, but I don't. I don't think I've been on a podcast, but maybe not.
Well, here we
Maybe
go.
so.
Well,
Here we go.
now, yeah. Well, before we dig in, I want to just give our listeners kind of an eagle eye view of your experience so they get to know who you are. So, you have over 40 years of experience in business and financial management, from auditing with one of the top 5 public accounting firms through financial accounting for SEC firms and the management of mid-sized companies. And since you started at EskewDumezRipple, did I say that correctly?
Yes, EskewDumezRipple.
Okay,
If you
good.
say
I
it
got
really
it.
fast, people like ask me what, and you're like, no.
Good. Everyone says my name is Rihanna, so I'm very
Yeah,
cognizant of pronunciation.
yeah,
So,
it's fine.
and so since you started there in about 2003, you've led the firm to its highest level of profitability since its inception in
No.
1989, while maintaining and enhancing the firm's transparent, collaborative, creative environment. So that's pretty impressive. And thank you so much again for being here today.
Well, you're welcome. It's a great team. Yeah, this worked in a bunch of different industries prior to this one: healthcare, oil and gas, school buses,
Oh,
children's clothing, men's leather belts. Uh,
we need another podcast to talk about your
so,
various lives.
and had a bunch of adventures in many of those different industries. And when I found this space, I found the most comfortable space for me because I love creative people. I am not overly creative myself. I am creative in the way I approach what I do, I think, but
Yeah.
I'm not a musician or an artist. And architects, particularly at heart, are artists. So I
Yes.
find that incredibly engaging. It does mean you need to approach what you do very differently than if in something that's just a business. Um, but they're all really smart, the engineers and the architects, because I do consulting in this space also, and I get to meet a lot of people at a lot of different types of firms. And universally, they're really, really smart. They're some of the nicest people I have ever worked with. They care so much about doing things well and doing them the right way and being responsible. It's just inherent in this industry, I think, because of what we do. So it's been really fun for me to be part of that. And My role is to help us get where we want to go. You can define what a CFO does in an organization a million different ways. The way I define it is our team says we want to go here. My job is to help us get there.
That's the best
Because
description of a
yeah.
CFO that I've heard, actually. Yeah, that makes totally
If you distill it down to its core essence of what I am here to do, that and I bring a special set of skills to help do that as part
yes.
of that leadership team. So I do what I do, they do what they do, and when we work in our best selves and we work really well together, we get there, and that's so satisfying and engaging. So you can tell
Well,
I like
and
what I do.
speaking of getting there, is there a project that you all have worked on that you're particularly proud of that you'd want to highlight?
So many. One recent project that has won national awards is the Thaden School in Arkansas. And it's in Bentonville, and it was a design, a project that the Walmart, the foundation they have, supported. And it's this amazing school that really works to help kids learn on all the different levels. And they were really interested in creating an environment where children can learn in different ways and have a broad education. And we did the uh, the dining hall. They call it meals. They have meals and wheels, some other fun names. And it's this beautiful space, and you walk in it, and having never worked in architecture and really didn't think about architecture till I came here, I didn't really understand the difference between what it feels like when you walk in a space that was designed thoughtfully, and it's a beautiful, not only is it beautiful, you feel good when you walk into it. You can't,
Yeah.
as a non-professional, and I can't always tell you why I feel that way, but when you walk in, you're like, I like being here. I feel good about being here. And that place I think is just so special because these are students, and school can sometimes be a pretty boring, I don't want to be here. And it that can help you be engaged and happy to be there, then the building's done its job. So that's one I'm super proud of that we were involved with. And it's really cool.
Well, that sounds amazing. And how, so you talked a little bit, I mean, you had a lot of different background before coming, like how kind of just talk about your career path a little bit and just how'd you end up here?
Yeah. So, I did very well in university, graduated magna cum laude. I was the outstanding business school graduate in accounting. And then I got the dream job that an accountant gets with the firm Arthur Anderson. They've
Oh yeah.
since they have a history.
Yeah.
And I started doing that job, and then spent about 6 months and went, I hate this. I hate everything that I'm doing every single day. This is boring. It's it's silly, it's stupid. I'm not doing anything. I'm not helping anyone. And
Hmm.
you know, as you start growing up, part of becoming mature is starting to understand yourself and what matters to you.
Yeah.
And that's when I started really understanding what mattered to me. I always kind of had this goal. I was the unusual young woman who wanted to be in charge and wanted to be the boss. And
Hmm.
in 1980s culture, women were not encouraged to have that opinion of themselves.
Yep.
In fact, we were discouraged. And uh, you know, I knew I wanted to be in charge. And then I had this job that was supposed to be the ideal job for someone doing what I wanted to do, and I hated it. So it's like, all right, well, I am not going to succeed here. I did not succeed in that job, which is what
Hmm.
happens, right? When you don't love what you do, you don't succeed in it, I don't think.
Yep. I would agree with that.
And so I left there and started doing school bus acquisitions for a company called Laidlaw Transportation, which was fascinating because they acquired about 12 companies a year, and talk about a great way to really understand how a variety of business models work. So that
Yeah.
became a piece of my education that was incredibly valuable, is understanding how, from small, mid-sized, large, different cultures, different ways to approach They were all trying to get to the same thing. And this was school buses. This is not a complex organization
Yep.
in a lot of
Yep.
ways. And I did post-acquisition accounting, which is basically trying to take their financial information and stick it into our system.
Oh,
But I
yes.
got to travel a lot and learn a lot. And every place I worked picked up a little something different. School buses, how to quickly hit the ground running in assimilating and understanding vastly different financial systems. So that kind of became a special skill set I started developing, is being able to hit the ground running, pick up a new system really quickly, and then make it better. So then I went into healthcare, which was interesting, completely different world. Worked there for 2 years, ran into my first experience with you're a woman, shut up and
Oh,
just do your job. And us men are going to do all the important stuff. And by the way, I'm going to take your work and present it as mine. And at this point, I was like, I'm pretty good at what I do. You don't appreciate this. I will take my toys and go someplace else. And
hmm.
took some great satisfaction in the person that was my supervisor at the time, got fired within 6 months because he couldn't do his job. So I, I, you know, I'm not a little happy about that. So then I went into, a couple of other quick jobs. In your early career, finding the place that fits you, finding the place that you fit, learning a whole lot. I
And
was
learning what, like you said, what you
yeah,
don't want,
what
right?
I
Like I
don't
always talk
want.
to younger
Yeah.
people and they're like, well, I don't know what I want to do. And I'm like, that's okay. You're going to find some things you definitely don't want to do and it'll help you narrow it. Like not everybody just magically knows.
Yeah,
So,
you just but learned a lot in that environment because I was very saucy about the fact that I didn't like what they were doing.
hmm.
I am not good at keeping my opinions to myself. And I was pretty saucy about this.
Hmm.
And uh, that was not an accepted behavior in that environment. So let's just move on from that. So then I worked for a company that was in the process of going bankrupt, learned a lot about how that works.
Mm.
Then I went into insurance where I got to see what happens in the finance world. There's what is legal and there's what is right. And there's some gray area around what is legal. And that was the first time where I worked for someone who took the job, did my own little internal audit and went, I don't think you can do this. Okay, now what do I do? Yeah, because I'm just a controller, you know.
Yeah.
But you have to file reports, and that is where your own personal ethics. So this is all part of that. I'm developing my own ethics, right? And that
Yeah.
was the first place where my ethics were challenged. So I had my, who I am, and do I stay true to who I am and my opinions and how I think things should work, and getting credit for my own work. And now it's how far are you willing to go over the line? I am never comfortable because my personal philosophy is, why would you ever want someone managing the finances of your business who is willing to cross the line?
Hmm.
Um, but I saw how they got into the owners of that business. They let their desire to succeed in that industry outrun uh, their right and wrong. What is right and what
Yep.
is wrong? And I just found out I was pregnant. So I was like, well, now what do I do?
Oh,
So the
wow.
state kept me on because, one of the things in accounting, um, there was a that I did learn in Arthur Anderson was always have what your CYA file, and it's cover your
Yep.
file. And so when I took this job, I had my own little CYA file where I had written to their outside accountants and said, I don't think you can do this. I think this is improper accounting. And I had a letter back from them saying, no, 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 everything's fine.
Yep.
So I stayed clean and all of that. I stayed with them, but got to watch two very, very nice humans who just went too far,
Yeah.
um, and learned a big lesson from that one. Then I went into children's clothing and pivot.
Was this
I got good at
was this
pivoting.
after baby? You were like, I know I need
So
baby
she was born. I
clothes,
had a
so I need
baby.
to,
Yeah, and I am an accountant at heart.
yeah.
Um, Beautiful children's clothing, and I had a little girl, and she was the best dressed baby, and worked in that space. It was the first time I worked for a woman in my entire career, which was awesome.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, that was awesome. And but that was where you got to see sometimes you can run your business extremely well and market conditions just work against you,
Yeah.
and that business couldn't pivot sufficiently to stay in business. So
Hmm.
that was my first experience with having to walk into someone's office and tell them that their business was no longer financially viable,
Wow.
that now this was the season they could declare bankruptcy, or not declare, they could shut down and would not have to declare bankruptcy. That I thought if we went one more season, that wouldn't be viable. Not something you're trained to do or expect
No.
to do. And that took, luckily, I'd worked with her for 5 years. She trusted me.
And it's funny, like I took a lot of accounting, finance just through my
Yeah.
general business degree, and they don't teach you, yeah, like the skill set of like you might have to have that kind of conversation with
Yeah.
someone and that has worked really hard and that's a really tough position to be in. You don't think about that from you think CFO numbers,
Yeah,
black
just
and white
numbers. And you're like,
spreadsheets,
no,
right?
you're the person who says, can we survive?
Yeah.
Sometimes, or no, we can't survive.
Wow.
And because her personal assets were securing the business loans. So
Oh,
that just put a little more pressure, you know, as a
yeah.
young woman, particularly to, that's not an easy thing to walk into someone's, because it just got to the point where I was like, this doesn't work anymore. And,
Yeah.
and if you don't do it now, you're going to lose everything. And so thankfully she was able to unwind her business and shut it down. Didn't didn't have to declare bankruptcy, was able to negotiate everything with the bank and get out of that intact. So that was something I was very proud of, very sad, and I didn't like what we had to do, but it worked well.
Yeah.
Then I went to a company that where am I now? I'm probably mid 30s.
They told me to try to keep this to 30 minutes, so I don't know. I don't know where we're
So
gonna
I'll
end
try
up
and
here.
accelerate. Then I worked for a company very shortly where it was toxic. So I didn't left. And I worked for a coffee company,
Ooh, okay.
which was really fun and interesting. Actually, the man who owned that company had someone call me to their office. Not anyone who worked for his company. He told me he wanted me to do my job as director of finance, but didn't want me to actually make decisions. I was like, okay, I'm out. I'm
Yeah,
just
like tapping out. That's all
tapping
it
out.
took.
And so I met with Alan Eskew and Mark Ripple. Alan was the founder of the company. They were in pretty serious financial trouble at that point, um, and had fired their controller and were about to hire someone else. And then I came in and I met with them, and everything just clicked so wonderfully
Oh,
that they hired me. Of course, then I get down inside, get into the company, and I'm like, okay, folks, y'all have no idea how serious your problems are. You don't
wow.
have a clue as to how deep this hole is. And I'm going to tell you, it is deep. But we dug out of it. And so that's how I came into architecture.
Wow. I don't know if I've ever heard a story with more twists and turns.
It's like its own little novel.
It is. We're gonna have to do a separate podcast
Yeah.
just
And
on
I'm not
that,
making
but
any of that up, by the way. I would like
wow.
to, or embellishing.
You're like, this is my
It's
story.
just what happened.
I love it. I love it. It's like, but like you said, you just kind of find that place. It's a good feeling when you finally find that place
Yes.
and the people that you can, connect with and grow with. So, um, that is amazing. And so shifting gears slightly, I mean, you already kind of alluded to some of the things that you've seen along your journey as it relates to, just differences and expectations of how females should operate within
Mhm.
a job or a workplace. And I think last time we got to see each other was at our conference, right?
Yeah.
And I started talking to you about this idea. And at that time, it was just like, it's an idea. I don't know
Oh,
what we're going to
good.
do. And here we are. But you were immediately like, yes, I'm interested. We need more of this. And I read a recent stat and it said only 3 of the world's 100 largest architecture firms are headed up by women, and only 10% of the world's leadership roles in architecture firms are held by females. Does that surprise you at all based on what you
No,
see? Not even a
not even
surprise.
a
You're
little.
like, yep,
Not just like, yep.
jeez.
It's and what's been interesting, because this is a subject that's very near and dear to me, as the first female principal in our firm,
Yeah,
with any real, I think my predecessor who got fired had a small interest, and I don't count that. But
yeah.
full disclosure, she technically had some shares. Uh, and as someone who through her career has been the only woman in the room,
Yep.
and as in the world of architecture, you've seen more women graduate, but they're not ascending into leadership roles as you would expect.
Yeah.
If you're graduating for the last 20 years, 40, 60, why wouldn't you see 40, 60 in leadership roles?
Or at
Yeah.
least 2080.
Or at least 20, at
Like,
least
like
something.
a little bit of movement. Yeah.
And it is not with malicious intent. There are no
Nope.
firms that said, nope, we're not promoting women. Um, there are no firms that intentionally sideline women. So what happens? That's, it's been a big question for me. And a big piece of it goes, and there's been a lot of writing, and I'm not an expert on this. I'm just going to tell you what I've seen. For most of my career, up until about the last 5 to 8 years, I was able to advance in my career because I played their game.
Mm.
I have a kind of personality that lets me be fairly comfortable in an aggressive, and I'm going to use the word aggressive, an aggressive, um, forthright kind of, this is the way it is.
Yep.
That, 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 do this, do that. Right. So I was able to navigate in that world. And I think because I was often the only person who did what I did in an organization, um,
So
and
lots of
because,
creatives, not as many
yeah,
business
or even,
finance.
children's clothing, coffee. There was only one
Yep.
person who I did what I did. So I wasn't competing against a man for the same role.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that probably played into it. Uh, and I think, and I know in our firm particularly, we've spent a lot of time trying to figure this out. And how do we create a place where we attract and retain women and that they want to be here? And watching the evolution of management styles, because about, like I said, somewhere more than 5, but less than 10 years ago, I decided to stop doing that. I said, I am no longer going to play that game. Not because I can't, but because I shouldn't.
Yep.
Because the women in my firm need to see something else, and the men in this firm need to learn how to work with something else. And I'm not like a hero or anything. It's just I stopped making excuses when a man didn't behave appropriately. And I'm not talking about any bad stuff. I'm just talking about the way they worked with people, right? The tones they used, how they approached problem solving, how they answered questions, how they gave feedback, how they provided a critique, all of those things. And I've talked with people about different things. And in my perspective, when I ever go to do something, is I could do it the way I want to do it,
Yep.
right? I'm the boss. I could do it the way I want to do it, which is kind of a mentality, but it's almost never going to get me what I want. I care more about getting what I want than about doing things my way. So I think when you change your perspective into what do I want to accomplish here and how am I going to get what I accomplish, I'm not going to compromise my morals, my ethics, or who I am at my core. But what I found, it lets me actually be a little bit more who I am. And now I'm happier doing what I do because I'm not having to wear this facade of, yeah, I could get in there and tough it out with you. If you get in my face, I'm going to get in your face. I could do that. I'll get in your face. If you get in my face, I'll get in your face. Um, I don't like doing that. I'm not that kind of a person. At my core, I like being happy. I like being nice to people. So I just stopped doing that. And I stopped making excuses for people who did. Um, and I'm working in an organization that wants that, right? And so we've made some great progress, I think, in changing how we do things in our firm. And I think that's the only way to get there because otherwise, women pretty much would take the attitude, I'm just going to take my toys and go someplace else. I'm good at what I do. I have something to contribute. If you're not going to value me or let me be who I am or make me have to wear an armor to walk into the room, I don't want to be here. So I don't know if that answers your question. But
It completely, I mean, I have a lot more questions and I'm looking at the clock like, oh no, how much?
How do we cut this stuff?
Yeah, they can edit some stuff out. No, I mean, because it's interesting, a lot of female leaders in AEC that I've met have that ability that you just mentioned, which is you can kind of be that chameleon. Like, okay, I can turn it on, I can play ball, I can hang with, anybody, but you kind of have to force yourself. And you're also very, like you said, you're not afraid to speak your mind. That probably has been something since childhood, right? You kind of always had that.
Like it or not.
And it's just, it strikes me, I guess that, because part of me is like, well, why do we need to highlight this female leadership thing? Why do we need more women in leadership? Because like people might be thinking that, right? And
Yeah.
for me, it's kind of like, think about those women who are introverted and maybe not as confident yet and don't know how to, do the back and forth, like, and they don't have anyone to really look up to that is more, just has a different approach. Like they'll never, like you said, you look at the graduation, and I saw when I was doing some research, I saw, wait a minute, and
Don't
now
make any sense.
it's so close. It's getting closer to being 50-50, yet you still have this incredible disparity. And I think that's why it's important. That's why it's important we have these conversations so that people who are working for organizations that don't have what you have today, they're gonna these type of discussions can help them start to figure that out. And that's why I'm so passionate about my career. My first job was in a construction company. Well, it was sort of, we were building a building and we were working with construction, and actually one of our customers today was that first contractor, and I met one female the entire time I was there, and I like one in a leadership position, and she was with a different company. But I happened to be like, oh, look, there's one. There she is.
We
And
stand
so I
out.
also learned how to, well, I've got to be a certain way. And I'm like you, I'm like, I don't need to do that anymore, which is great. But so I guess how did you, now principal, like you said, you're, owner, part owner of this company. Like, was there any turning point where like you really had to go for it or solidify your leadership? Is there anything you can share in that sense of how how you ended up here in a male dominated, only 10% of, leaders are women in architecture firms?
Yeah. Well, whether it was right or wrong, and I got a lot of pushback because I was always comfortable saying, I think I need to be in the room. When I took the job here, I didn't know them, they didn't know me. And at this point, I knew a lot about how I like to work. And I said, okay, if you want somebody to come in and regurgitate numbers, I am not that person. I can do that and I will do it very well and very accurately. That is not where my value comes in. My value comes in in doing what I just told you I like to do. I can get you where you want to go. That is where my value comes from. If that isn't what you want, then I am not the right person. If it is what you want, then I need to be in the room. And I love the song "The Room Where It Happens" from Hamilton, because I, I told them, I didn't care about the title. I didn't care about ownership at that point. It was just not even on my radar. And I wasn't even super worried about compensation because, in my opinion, the compensation would come once they saw what I brought to the table. It's like, but if you don't want me in the room and if you don't want me at the table, I'm not the person you should have. Now, again, in a role where I can do that. But to take it to a broader sense, being comfortable saying, I want that,
Yes.
and that's one of the things that women are often less likely to say that. And I
Yes.
think being comfortable saying that and being comfortable saying I'm good at what I do and it has
Mm-hmm.
value. Being comfortable with that, I think, is important.
Yeah.
It's not bragging. It's I'm good at what I do,
Confidence. We should
and
have confidence.
and I can help you be better,
Yeah.
right? If I do what I do at the level I do it at, you will be a better firm.
Yeah.
Uh, I was told that I shouldn't say those things early in my career. Obviously, I've never been very good at listening. Uh, so I've done it all along and often been told and dismissed. But here, when I took the job, they were like, okay. And of course, at that point, I didn't know how deep the hole was. And I was like, doo, 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 doo. I'm going to be fine. I'm also a bit of, I'm comfortable with risk. So I was
Yeah.
like, yeah, I can do this. I'll be fine. We'll make it work. And, we did. And now we're, down the road. We've been through so many disruptions and events. My early career prepared me for being a leader in a firm that there's going to be bumps in the road. There's going to be hurricanes, pandemics,
Oh
cyber
yeah.
attacks,
Jeez.
recessions. Uh, our founding principal died suddenly. You know, there's going to be stuff. But yeah, so the big thing is I think, be confident and be comfortable showing that confidence. That doesn't mean you walk into the room with, having a song playing behind you, how great you are, but it's good and appropriate to let people know you're good at what you do.
In the way you were describing too, I was like the analogy that I was jumping to is it's like when you're in the dating world and you just let a relationship go, even though you're like, I know this isn't what I want. And I'm getting
Yeah.
like, we do that in careers,
You're
especially
like,
early on. And
oh,
so that's what I heard
okay.
you say is like, just tell them what you want. Like, make sure that you're dating the right person.
This
And
is
if you're
not
not,
okay.
get out. Like, there's
This is
other,
not okay. You're not
yeah,
going to talk to me that way. You will
yeah,
not speak to me that way. You will not treat me that way.
yeah,
Um, I'm going to go take my toys and go someplace else. And
yeah,
then you find the place where it's valued. You find the place where you can contribute. And that's been my goal for the last 10 years, is to kind of change my perspective in, as you mature in your career. A piece of our responsibility is making sure there's room for the people coming behind us and modeling
yes,
that and making things better for them. And so I'm a huge proponent for pay equity and pay transparency.
yeah.
Spent a lot of time and effort, and boy, has it just been transformative for us. The salary conversations are no longer stressful experiences for anybody, because of how we do it and how that's a piece of it, right?
Well, and
Because
I don't want to
it,
ever is it because there could be confidential. Like, is there anything you can share, I guess, in the sense of how you all approach
yeah.
that as a
Oh, no,
company?
absolutely. Because this is one of the things I speak on frequently. Um, our firm, and as many firms do, and this is when I talk to firms, I said, you spend so much time trying to get compensation right. Every firm I talk to, their leadership team spends so much time trying to do it right. I said, why don't you want your staff to know you did that? Why don't
Yeah.
you want to show that? I said, and you can't just tell, you have to show,
Hmm.
because every woman who works for you hears repeatedly that they are paid less than men. The statistics in our industry says women are paid less than men. You have to address that because they think that walking in the door. So um, we use industry benchmarks. Uh, I make a chart, call it salary bands, call it whatever you want, 25th percentile, 75th percentile, and everyone knows where their dot is on that chart. And before we do all the salary conversations, I show them on a screen all the dots. and I anonymize it as much as I possibly can, but I want them to see every one of you is a dot in here. And I want you to see that not everybody is right in the middle, and they shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Because we use kind of a 1 to 4 scale to decide where your dot should be. And that's how we determine people's salaries. It's so much less stressful, so much less time consuming. There's so much trust that we build up when we do that. And, my favorite thing to do is to tell somebody, hey, we brought you in. You've been here for a year. You should be higher up on this chart because this is how we say you're performing. So we're giving you a really big raise. Are you okay with that?
That's the great part of the CFO.
That's the great part.
Yeah.
But it's also, you start having the right conversations, and I'm a big advocate for having the right conversations. If someone isn't paid what they want to be paid, I can use this because it's a simple chart. Salaries up here on the vertical graph, years of experience on the horizontal, the benchmarks. Here's your dot. If you don't like where your dot is, let's talk about what you need to do to move your dot.
Yeah.
If you don't know like where we've placed you, the conversation isn't, is your number right? The conversation is, what are you contributing that says you should be higher on, what would we be looking for? That's the conversation you should be having. And so it's been incredibly productive doing it that way.
So any last, I mean, you've given a lot of nuggets along the way, but any sort of, advice that you would give to women entering into the AEC space? Final parting words.
Final parting words. You work with a bunch of really nice, kind, good people at heart. Let them be good and kind, and stay good and kind, and everybody else will be happier. You can have a few jerks out there. We just need to get rid of them. That's my list.
It's as simple as that.
I no longer tolerate that. I was like, you're not gonna, and I am fortunate, being an accountant. When you asked for pivotal moments, the moment I walked into a room, because of my role, I know what everybody makes, and I knew what I was making compared to the other people in the room with me. And there was a day where I said, someone in this room needs to explain to me why I don't make as much as you. And that's
the mic drop. That's the mic drop right there. I love that.
And I was just like, I don't understand it. Somebody's got to explain it to me.
And they couldn't, I'm guessing.
And so they just gave me a raise.
That is a fantastic story. I love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much.
This was fun.
Absolutely, I know we could do this for at least 2 hours, in my opinion. So I just have to say to our listeners, thank you for listening to Breaking Ground, Women in AEC Leadership. And if today's episode resonates with you, be sure to follow, leave a review, or share it with someone in your network. And if you have your own story to share, please send us an email. Our contact information is available in the podcast bio. Until next time, keep breaking new ground.